This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. Indian officials say they know where a young American missionary was killed by tribespeople living on a remote island. John Allen Chow was killed by North Sentinel Islanders who apparently shot him with arrows and then buried his body on the beach. Now authorities are trying to figure out how to recover his body. So far, they have only identified the general area where it could be. Chow went to the island to share the love of Jesus. Police say Chow knew that the Sentinelese were hostile to all outsiders. Officials have also arrested 7 people who helped to get the American to the island. They have been charged with culpable homicide. And joining us now is Dr. Mary Ho, the international executive leader of All Nations, the organization that sent Chow. Thank you so much for joining us, and please accept our condolences.
Thank you so much, Heather. Here in All Nations, we are just so shocked and grieved. And we're having prayer vigils in different parts of the world for John's family and friends.
Yes. How do we know, or what do we know about how John Chow died?
Yes, so reportedly, after he landed on the island, I think several of the locals shot arrows at him, and that is how he died.
All right. And this group of islanders has made it known that they do not accept or want outsiders. Why did you support him going?
Yeah, so All Nations missionary John Chow, since he was 18 years old, he felt a call from God to share the love of God, the goodness of God with the North Sentinelese. And every decision he has made in the last 8-9 years has been to equip him to love and to care for the North Sentinelese. He was extremely well prepared in every way. And so that is why we supported him, because he majored in sports medicine, in health, and exercise science. He got trained as an EMT so that he can be fully prepared to go and share the love of God with the North Sentinelese.
Let me ask you a specific question. Were you concerned that he risked exposing the islanders to disease, given that they've not had contact with the outside world?
Well, All Nations missionary John Chow, he made sure that he majored in medicine-related majors, including sports medicine and health and exercise science. He got trained as an EMT. Also, before he went to the island, he got 13 types of immunization shots. And in the few days before he left for the island, he actually quarantined himself to prepare himself. So he was well-researched, and he took every single precaution.
So as a mission organization, you did not feel that he was a health risk to the people on the island?
Well, actually, no one knows the exact health condition of the people. And in past history, yes, contact with Western population has wiped out local populations, but we are actually in a different time of advanced medicine and antibiotics. And I think a lot of modern medicine may be able to help the local population in some of the health issues. We just don't know.
All right. Many people want to know, did Chow have permission from the authorities to visit the island?
Yes, so All Nations missionary John Chow, right before he left, he knew that the travel ban to the North Sentinel Island was actually lifted by the Indian government. It's called RAP. And the ban was lifted for 29 islands, including the North Sentinel Island. So he went to the island fully knowing that the travel ban was lifted.
All right. Well, we are all, I think, as a community of believers, so incredibly grieved over this situation. What can other missionaries learn from this situation? And what would you like people to remember about John Chow?
Yes, so All Nations missionary John Chow set us an example that all of us are to follow the purpose that we were created for, to follow the calling that is on our lives, and to be fully prepared. He spent his life preparing to share God's love and care and goodness with the North Sentinelese. And so we should, each one of us, follow God's calling on our lives.
All right. Any regrets, any lessons that you think maybe there was a better way to do this that wouldn't have had this outcome? Or do you think he just needed to risk it all as he did?
Well, I think he prepared and followed God's calling as best as he can. And here in All Nations, we consider it an honor to have journeyed with him.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you for how you are honoring him, and we will look forward to following this situation. Thank you, Dr. Ho.
Thank you very much, Heather.
A Chinese researcher claims that he helped make the world's first genetically edited babies. If true, many experts say it is a dangerous leap in science and ethics.
The researcher, Hai Jinkui, says he used a powerful gene editing tool to alter the DNA of twin girls born this month. He says the tool gave their embryos the ability to resist possible future infection with the AIDS virus.
I feel a strong responsibility that it's not just to make it first, but also make it as example how to perform like this. Consider morality of the society and consider its impact to the public.
His work has not yet been independently confirmed or reviewed by other scientists, but if proven true, it crosses into a new frontier of medicine and ethics. Gene editing is banned in the United States because the DNA changes can pass to future generations and it risks harming other genes. Most mainstream scientists think it's too unsafe to try, and some denounce the Chinese report as human experimentation.
We still have a lot of work to do to prove and establish that the procedure is actually safe. I would say that no babies should be born at this point in time following the use of this technology. It's simply too early, too premature.
Some worry the procedure will be used to design babies with certain traits. The man who claims to have accomplished it says it's too late to stop it, and that if he hadn't done it, someone else would have.
And CBN's health reporter Lori Johnson joins us now to discuss this. Incredible that he would present it in a conference. Tell us, what is gene editing?
Yeah, a lot of people have never heard of gene editing, but as the name suggests, it's the process of taking out a bad gene and in a person's DNA, such as a gene that causes hemophilia, cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, literally removing that gene and then replacing it with a healthy gene. It's a relatively new process, and there's a sort of a technique called CRISPR that's more effective and less expensive than anything we've seen before, which means more scientists can do it. So, Heather, we're talking about a slippery slope here, a great potential for wonderful advances and healing all kinds of terrible diseases, especially ones that afflict children. But then, of course, as we've seen, great potential for harm and misuse.
Right. And talk about the ethical questions that scientists are trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, they've been talking about this for a while because they've been able to sort of like see down the road what might possibly happen. Up until now, scientists have agreed amongst themselves to just use gene editing on living people in a non-reproductive manner, such as using the person's own stem cells. Ethical scientists agreed for now that it's best to stay away from gene editing in sperm and egg cells and in embryos, because in all of those cases, the genetic changes can be passed down to future generations, and there are too many possibilities for unintended consequences. The Chinese scientists, as we learned, apparently did conduct the gene editing in embryos, apparently in secret, And the scientist who actually developed CRISPR is condemning the action, calling for an investigation and reiterating the moratorium on gene editing in embryos. In the case of the Chinese twins, it's already being speculated that although the procedure may have reduced the child's risk of contracting HIV from a parent, it raises the chance of getting West Nile virus. And furthermore, Heather, there are already effective ways at preventing the transmission of HIV without having to resort to gene editing.
Oh, yeah. So can of worms here. And talk about, too, the difference between gene editing and then epigenetics, what that is.
Right. They're similar and different. The similarity is in both cases, we're talking about what to do about a bad gene. You've got a bad gene. What should we do about it? And with epigenetics, which is something that I talked about today on the 700 Club, and tomorrow I'm having part 2 of my discussion of epigenetics. With epigenetics, what you do is you try to turn off the bad gene. And there are lots of behavioral ways to do that with diet, stress reduction, removing toxins from the environment. With gene editing, as we've seen, they take the bad gene out and put a healthy gene in. So those are the two big differences.
All right. Well, thanks for following this.
It's crazy.
It is. All right. Well, and as you as Lori just mentioned, you can learn more about epigenetics on this week's 700 Club. Tune in today for part 1 and tomorrow for the second part of the special series. Well, Thanksgiving weekend has wrapped up, but the journey home for millions of people in the middle of the country has proved to be difficult. Mark Martin joins us now in the newsroom to explain. Mark?
Heather, a powerful blizzard is to blame for the travel troubles. It pounded the Midwest and is now headed east. On Sunday, airlines had to ground or delay nearly 6,000 flights. Blizzard conditions in states like Iowa and Kansas caused millions to adjust their travel plans. Heavy wind and snow on Sunday even led authorities to close parts of Interstate 70. The Kansas governor declared a state of disaster emergency after driving proved to be so hazardous.
Oh man, it's been hectic, bro. Really bad, really terrible.
I'll tell you, for us to shut down traffic in all directions, and it could be very serious.
The second person you heard from there is George Greenlee of the Holloway Terrace Fire Department. He's referring to a backup on the East Coast not caused by the weather. Authorities closed the Delaware Memorial Bridge between Delaware and New Jersey after there was a gas leak at a chemical company nearby. And the closure stranded families trying to get home after the long weekend for hours. Heather?
Right. It's hard to believe all of this in the Midwest, which is kind of used to a lot of this. Oh, anything else that happened to hinder travel over the weekend?
Yeah, good question. Some passengers trying to get to Boston from New York City by train ended up being stuck for 11 hours because of power problems. The trip was only supposed to take 4 hours. Amtrak said debris on the overhead wire was responsible.
Mark, what happens now with that storm system?
Forecasters say the storm system is now expected to produce heavy rain, which could hinder the evening commute for millions of people in areas from Philadelphia to Boston. Heather?
All right, Mark, thanks so much. And calling out Russia, hear how the U.S. is condemning Russian actions against the Ukraine. Between the Ukraine and Russia, Ukrainian naval officials say Russian ships fired on and seized 2 of its artillery ships Sunday in the Black Sea. 6 Ukrainian seamen were hurt in the incident. Today, Nikki Haley spoke out against Russia's actions at an emergency UN Security Council meeting, saying the United States will continue to stand with the people of Ukraine against the Russian aggression. Haley added that the United States would welcome a normal relationship with Russia, but outlaw actions like this one make it impossible. Russian officials say the Ukrainian vessels made an unauthorized passage through the Russian territorial waters. And up next, a fleet of ships arrive on the shores of Israel, and they're bringing love and support to the Jewish state. CBN News is on board the Alita for the historic voyage, so don't go away. Not too long ago, a ship from Sweden set sail on a historic voyage. It was manned by a group of Christians headed for the Holy Land. Their goal to speak out for persecuted believers in the Middle East and carry a blessing to the Jewish people. CBN's Chris Mitchell brings us that story from on board the Alita.
As this more than 100-foot vessel sailed into Herzliya Harbor, dozens of other ships, boats, and even windsurfers came out to greet her.
I saw this whole fleet coming towards us from Herzliya. It's like, how many are they going to be? We thought maybe 2, 4, 5. And in the end, we were just surrounded all around with all these small and large ships. And I had to literally pinch myself. I was like, what are we part of?
The name of the ship is called Alita, and it sailed from Sweden for 2 reasons.
We want to show solidarity with 2 groups. First of all is the Christian minorities in the Middle East that are about to go extinct. So we're trying with this sail to raise our voice, to say, listen to them and to those who are left. This is the cradle of Christianity itself. And Christians are almost going extinct because they're killed for their faith. Then where can we sail with this message? And the only answer is Israel, because first of all, it says Jesus, sailing for Jesus on the side. There's no other country in the Middle East that would open up their ports for us. And it's the only country in the Middle East where the Christians are growing in numbers. So we want to support Israel in this.
The inspiration came to Captain Stefan Abramson in 2017 during the Jerusalem prayer breakfast, when a waiter told him,
"You are Christian, you are a Swedish guy, and you love Israel." I have never ever met a person like that. And then I said, hello, we are a lot of people in Sweden who loves Israel. When I come home after that prayer breakfast, I felt we have to do something. We can't only sit here and don't do anything. You know, for me, love is nothing you talk about. Love is something you're doing.
That doing turned into an historic voyage to Israel, along with a message.
I say to them, hello, you are here of a purpose. God gave you the 10 Commandments and you gave the Torah. And that's the most beautiful gift you gave to the whole world community. They don't used to hear Christian people from, especially not from Sweden, saying this word to them. But from deep of my heart, I believe that's true. So as a Christian, I have to support Israel. I have to support the value of what they're standing for.
Sweden is considered by some the most anti-Israel country in Europe. Captain Abramson and his crew want to change that.
I'm praying for a golden age between Jewish and Christian communities. I believe that what we're doing now is something God wants us to do.
CBN News joined the Alita as it set sail in the Mediterranean along the coast of Israel. The Alita attracted attention from all over Israel. Today, Israeli Sea Scouts came on board for a hands-on experience. They hoisted the anchor, manned the helm, and relished the experience. Also on board, Dan Sheckman, who won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2011.
We need more friends like this that will come to visit us and will give us a word of support, action of support, and tell the people in their countries, hey, Israel is a wonderful place.
The crew didn't expect such an enthusiastic welcome.
We've been blown away of the love that we've been met, but also by invitations to all these different places.
Some Israelis came skeptical, but left changed.
When people come on board and they meet us and they meet the love and just friendship, it's changing hearts. One by one, we're changing hearts. And some people have literally been crying. And one crew member said it's like they've been starved for attention from Sweden.
Karen sees the Bible come to life.
If you read Isaiah talking about ships coming from the Gentile nations to Israel and showing their support for the nation, I mean, yes, it's part of it. And I do think that there's a time when we need to express their love and to side by side with the Jewish nation.
As the voyage ended, Captain Abramson shared his heart with the visiting Sea Scouts.
We sail all the way from Sweden to start a movement of friendship between Sweden and Israel. I wish you everything the best, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you very much for coming here.
Then they taught the Swedish captain an Israeli cheer.
Ale! Yam! Ale! Yam! Ale! Yam, yam, yam!
Earlier, he played Israel's national anthem, Hatikva. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, on board the Alita off the coast of Israel.
Beautiful pictures and a wonderful celebration. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This summer, a 19-year-old Indonesian man survived 49 days lost at sea. Recently, he told CBN's Lucille Talusan about the one possession that gave him hope throughout the ordeal.
In the middle of a summer storm at sea, heavy wind snapped the moorings of Aldi Adilang's fishing raft. On that late July night, he was suddenly swept into the Pacific Ocean.
When I drifted away, I was not scared at first because I thought it's okay. Some boat will see me and rescue me. But after many weeks passed, I began to be fearful. What if no one sees me?
After a few days, Aldi's food and water ran out. He survived by catching fish and cooking them by burning wood from his hut. He sipped sea water through his clothes. Aldi began to grow desperate.
At night, I got very scared because many sharks were circling my raft. I was afraid I will not see my parents again, my family, and my friends. I thought of jumping into the sea and just commit suicide.
It was on a raft like this where Aldi spent 49 days adrift in the deep seas without a paddle or a motor. He said that he was terrified and almost gave up. But he also testifies that it was the Bible that gave him the determination to live.
I had my Bible with me. I become strong again when I read the Bible. I prayed. I also sang worship songs. And when I do this, all my fears are gone. God spoke to me. He said, "Be patient. I will come and help you."
After Aldi's rescue off the coast of Guam, he was reunited with his family in Indonesia. Today, they sing together in the church choir about God's goodness and faithfulness that has become so real in their lives.
God is so great. I thank God for taking care of me every day. He never leaves us, even in dangerous situations.
Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Manado, Indonesia.
And we hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.